Do 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 do. Here's two facts that nobody in photography seems to know about. As someone who used to repair cameras for decades, and also too an expert on field theory. I can actually say I'm an expert on field theory. Let's talk about two facts every photography person out there doesn't have a clue about, or 99% don't have a clue about. This is the stuff that you won't see on YouTube from the guy with the big hair or that other guy with the silver hair because they don't know anything about this. It's kind of important, yeah? First, let's start off by stating something interesting as a former ham radio operator. People used to buy expensive lightning arrestor devices so they wouldn't fry their radios. You know what? Even if they grounded them, if you get a direct hit, your equipment is fried. The short answer to this, even though I've made videos about this years ago, is that dielectric induction, and this is proven from Tesla coil experiments, and you can also find countless videos of this on YouTube. Dielectric induction moves faster than the speed of light. Now, light's not a speed, it's a rate of induction. This means that you can have all the fancy power, and really expensive, I know this for a fact also. I used to have friends that were TV stations, really, really expensive lightning arrestor devices. Get a direct hit, all that expensive equipment didn't really protect a whole lot. It didn't. Here's the thing. Also, too, let's use another analogy here. I used to build computers, did tech support for Apple. Still got articles I've written for Apple on Apple's website. You know the reason why a computer has a separate little card for power, or like a tower computer? It has a power supply unit. Of course, it converts AC to low voltage regulated DC current. You know the reason for that? It protects the main board. Protects the memory, protects the processor, protects the incredible fragile nature of a main board. Yeah? Here's what you shouldn't do, and I just got done reading a post by a guy on a photography board, and he's a moderator of the board, and he had an issue, and he explicitly stated that he'd been keeping his camera plugged in to the AC power wall outlet when he's doing some, I think it was doing some multiple shot photography. Point being, the camera doesn't work right now. Your camera, doesn't matter how expensive or how inexpensive it is, when you actually plug in the power, and I tell people this, like, well, it says right there, and you know, on this fact, this is where Fujifilm and Nikon and Sony and everybody else is wrong. And it's also, too, the reason why I don't appreciate that Fujifilm didn't include an external charger for the battery on the X-T4. I find that very dissatisfactory, even though I love Fujifilm to death. They give you a little cord to actually plug into the USB port here, which travels across. There's not a separate, a separate power supply unit or PSU in any digital camera. None that I know of. There aren't any that I know of. There's a reason for that. There's not enough space, and you don't need to do it, but it should be done, but there's not enough space for it. It would cost a lot more. As it travels from one side of the camera, it charges the battery. I tell everybody not to do that. They say, well, sure, it'd be okay. It says right here in the user manual, you just plug it into USB port. Not only is that a problem for the United States, where we actually have a better power grid and better well-regulated specious currents and electrical phenomena going through, I don't know if you've ever seen some of those places in various parts of the world with like a million power feeds that are feeding off the transformer. Those look like a spider web of power lines where everybody is illegally taught. That's something else I actually find funny and horrifying. When you're actually passing that current across the main board, that's like sticking a racetrack through the crib of your baby. It's like, yeah, we're gonna divert the race right through your baby's crib. Well, that doesn't seem dangerous. No, it'll be okay. People say, well, I read this in the user manual, and it is in the user manual for Nikon and Fujifilm, Sony, and everybody else. You just plug in that USB. Don't ever do that. It's charging across the main board. Don't ever charge across the main board. When you're plugging into any port of your camera, Okay? Don't care what camera it is, Fujifilm, Nikon, Sony. You're charging across the main board. That is incredibly dumb. It saves money. Keeps you from having to include a charger in the box, which, yeah, I get that. I get it. Don't do it. Just because a company tells you you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. I can think of 1,000 different examples of 1,000 different devices through my life where a company will tell you, sure you could do that. You can't. You can technically do it, but you shouldn't do it. So never plug your camera into the wall. Well, it's just a USB cable. I just use a little wall wart, and it's working. I've done it. This is also what people say. You say, I've done it 100 times. Well, you can stick your head in an alligator's mouth 100 times too. You shouldn't be doing it. The other thing that everybody keeps telling me, and here's something I actually do know better than the top 100 YouTube photography channels combined, because I know I've fixed more cameras than they have. Everybody says, well, is the lens weather sealed? Is that camera weather sealed? Doesn't make any difference. Now, I know for a fact, and this is what the Olympus folks love to say, yeah, Panasonic's real good at this too. It depends on the camera. Well, Olympus has got a lot of weather sealing on their camera. Look at all those O-rings. You know, this is true. But now let me tell you a fact, especially Olympus folks. They're not the only ones that say this nonsense. They're true, but they're also 100% wrong. Well, that doesn't make any sense. No, they're 100% wrong, because what they don't get and what everybody else doesn't get is that no camera or lens is weather sealed. Well, sure they are. This one's got 20 more O-rings and it's weather sealed. That's true, but you're still wrong. And the reason why you're wrong and they're wrong is that 98% of cameras that are damaged from the water molecule, which I actually have tattooed on the back of my hand here, is due to humidity corrosion. Let me repeat those two things by pulling them back. Humidity corrosion. That means, because no matter how many O-rings, how many seals you have on the camera, it's going to get in. By the way, a great thing, and I've said this before to other people, on the fully articulating screens, there's not a break in the back panel of the magnesium plates on cameras with fully articulating screens like there are on the tilt screens, because there's actually a Flexa cable, which is not only very fragile, but it passes right through here. There's a direct portal for humidity infiltration right onto the main board. I've seen so much corrosion that is immediately behind that hole, even though it's covered up with a little patch and a little piece of rubber, usually. 98% of cameras damaged from water is not because, all of a sudden you're outside and, the rain started falling. Oh my God, and then you covered your camera up and you ran back to the truck or whatever, and you wiped the water. Oh my God, at least my camera's weather sealed. Yeah, the wet stuff that actually falls on your head and on your camera, that makes little domes of liquid, that is not what is killing your camera, and 98% of other cameras killed by water. It's humidity. This is the difference between short-term invasive, meaning rain. Oh my God, it's raining, I covered my camera. Short-term invasive versus long-term pervasive. Long-term pervasive means humidity infiltration. And what will happen is, it's okay. I had my camera out and it was really, really humid. Man, it was humid. I was in Southeast Asia during the rainy season. But I came home and it's fine now. What is happening, just like a plant growing, is the corrosion is growing on the main board and the contacts. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 months later, after you got back from shooting in Southeast Asia, like, oh my God, my camera doesn't work anymore. Let me repeat this again. This is not my opinion, it's the fact. No camera or lens is weather sealed. Sure they are. You're wrong. My Olympus has got a dozen O-rings on it. It's got 30 O-rings more than your Fuji. This is true. Well, see, it proves it. No, it doesn't prove anything. Because it doesn't know how many O-rings you have on that Olympus camera you got. There are still countless pores. You see, every Olympus and Fujifilm and Nikon and Sony camera is exactly like this. You see, there's no rubber O-ring here. All these little ports on the side, and the top, and the bottom, yeah, they are soldered on directly. They're little portals. They're actually not that little. portals to the main board where humidity gets in, corrosion starts to grow, and then the camera goes, eh. So, at the end of this video, let me please state explicitly that no camera or lens is weather sealed. And it doesn't matter if it has twice as many or 3 times as many O-rings on it. It's still not weather sealed, because there's a huge difference between short-term invasive and long-term pervasive, and 98% plus of cameras destroyed by water is not the wet stuff that you can feel. It's like being in like really, really, really humid Southeast Asia, taking pictures for 2 weeks or something, or Florida. You know, like me, I take my cameras out in the rainy season. In short, humidity is what's killing your camera, not that wet stuff that's falling on your head. Okay? But humidity and that wet stuff is exactly the same stuff. Nobody has a problem shooting out in heavy humidity. Everybody has a problem with rain falling on their head out shooting. But when it comes to your camera, there's no difference. See, that's the point that nobody seems to get.